So jumping out into our main topic, that is inlay casting wax. So in classification we have already read about inlay casting wax. Okay, so um, let me quickly give you a review. Okay, so it comes under the pattern waxes. Okay, in classification. Okay, now let us revise the inlay casting wax. So this is the oldest waxes among dentistry. Okay, this is generally introduction. Okay, what are the uses of inlay casting wax? So this inlay casting wax are generally used for making a pattern for inlays, okay, crowns, FPDs, that is fixed partial dentures, which are made by wax and they are replaced by metal during casting. So we'll be we'll be studying detail about this casting of inlay wax in the chapter of casting procedures. Okay, so here you just remember that it is used for making a metal crown. Okay, so they can be made by using a direct technique and indirect technique. So what this direct and indirect technique mean is, in direct technique, the pattern, it is made directly on the tooth in mouth. So here we take the wax. Okay, so we will be having a patient. We have to prepare a crown for the patient. So we take the wax and directly place the wax in the patient's mouth and we prepare the pattern. So this type of technique is generally called as direct technique. Okay, so the next one is indirect technique. So in indirect technique, we prepare a die. So I have already said the die is a positive replica of the prepared tooth. Okay, that can be made by using various taking an impression from the patient's mouth and preparing a die. Okay, on that we will be preparing the wax pattern. That is a laboratory step. Here we don't directly prepare this pattern in the patient's mouth. Rather we prepare a die from the patient's replica, and on the die in laboratory we prepare the wax pattern. So this technique is generally considered as an indirect technique. Okay, so what are the ideal requirements? So this is one of the most important question in this topic, that is, what are the ideal requirements of inlay wax? Okay, so this inlay wax is expected to be an LAQ, that is long answer question, or it can be asked in a short answer or very short. Okay, so what are the ideal requirements? So when the wax is softened, okay, when the wax is softened, it should be uniform. That is, no grainness or hard spots must be seen. For suppose this is the wax. Now I'm going to heat this wax. So if I heat this wax should be uniformly heated. That is, here it must not be cool and here it must not be like hot. It should be uniform temperature when we heat the wax. Like while making an occlusal rims, generally we place the sheet of the wax on the flame and we rotate it. So why do we rotate it? So for the uniform temperature distribution, we rotate this wax sheet. Okay, so if we don't rotate it, its appearance will be like grain and hard spots. Okay, it won't be a soft one. So the softening of the wax should be uniform. Okay, the next property or the next ideal requirement is the color should contrast with the dye. Suppose my dye would be in white color. Okay, so then my inlay wax should be some other color rather than white. That it can be a red or it can be a blue or any color, but it should be in contrast with the dye, so that the dentist could identify the differentiate. He can differentiate between the wax and the dye, so that he can identify and finishing of margins would be easier. Okay, so next point is the wax should not flake or crumble when softening. Okay, so what does the sentence mean is, suppose again we take the same example. This is the wax. Now I'm going to heat this wax. So when I'm going to heat, the wax should not be broken down into pieces. Okay, it should be like a smooth one. See, it's a smooth like this. It must be a smooth one. It should not be crumbled like in a crumble like bread crumbles. Okay, so this wax should not be like that. It should be uniform and it should not be broken into crumbles. Next, the wax should not chip off while carving. As we all know, generally we carve waxes during carving. When we carve this wax, okay, what happens? See, it's like uniform. The wax should vaporize completely without residue during burnout procedure. Again, this line is directly related to the casting procedures. Okay, so if you want me to explain this, we can go with it. So let me explain you this one. So what this casting procedure generally means. Okay, suppose this is the patient's mouth. Okay, now this is the tooth. Okay, this is the tooth. We had to replace this tooth. Okay, what we do first? First what we do is with wax, we take an impression of this. Okay, first generally we take an impression of this tooth which we have to prepare, and by using this wax we prepare a positive replica of this tooth. Suppose this is the tooth. Okay, this is the tooth. This is made of wax. Okay, now what we do, we don't directly place this wax tooth inside the patient's mouth, right? As it is unstable, as it is dimension stability is less, strength is less, flow is greater at higher temperatures. We have studied the properties of waxes. So it is not suitable directly to place this wax crown inside the patient's mouth. So what we do is, we take this wax crown. So this is generally called as wax pattern. Okay, this is called as wax pattern. Now we take this wax pattern, and what we do is we keep this wax pattern inside a casting ring. Okay, we place this. Okay, we attach a sprue former. Okay, and we pour the investment inside this, that can be of gypsum. Okay, gypsum investment is poured. Now this is heated at higher temperatures in a casting machine. Okay, what happens when we heat it? Like we all know, if we heat the wax, it melts away. Okay, so this wax crown, I mean wax pattern which we have prepared, this melts away. So when this wax pattern melts away, what happens? There would be an impression in the gypsum. Okay, there will be an impression of the crown which is made up of wax in the gypsum. So after this wax melts away completely, we allow the molten alloy. Okay, alloy, it is generally a mixture of metals. So we allow this molten alloy to flow into the sprue channel, so it fills away the impression, okay, that has been made out by burning the wax at 500 degrees Celsius. Okay, after that we would be cooling this. After that we would be removing all this casting ring, liners and gypsum. Finally we get a metal crown, okay, which is attached like this. We get this a metal crown which is made up of alloys. Now we are going to polish and trim this, and we would be placing this into the patient's mouth. Okay, so this is the casting procedure generally. So now coming into our regular topic. So what I have said is, the wax should vaporize completely without a residue. So as I have said earlier, that we need to burn, okay, at 500 degrees Celsius, so that the wax should be completely burnt away without any residue, and the molten alloy flows into it, and it fills up the impression that has been made by the wax pattern, and we would be obtaining our metal crown. Okay, next, the wax. The wax should be rigid and dimensionally stable. Okay, the wax must be rigid and dimensionally stable so that we can be using in our dentistry. Okay, next, the wax should be sufficiently plastic, that is slightly above the mouth temperature, rigid when cool to mouth temperature. So let me explain you this both points briefly. So now we are taking this wax sheet. Now I'm going to place this wax sheet inside the patient's mouth. So first what I do is, I'm going to take this. Now I'm going to heat this wax. So after heating, what happens? After heating, what happens? It will be plastic. That is, it's like this, elastic. Okay, plastic. It is plastic. See, this nature is called as plastic. This is the plasticity of the wax. Okay, so when I heat this to the greater than the mouth temperature, that is greater than 37 degrees, the wax tend to be a plastic one. Now, when I place this plastic wax material into the patient's mouth, it becomes rigid. Why? So I have heated it to approximately 43 degrees Celsius, Again, I have placed this in the patient's mouth whose temperature is 37 degrees centigrade. So there is a cooling, that is temperature decreased. So what happens? The wax tends to be getting rigid when it approaches to the mouth temperature. Okay. Next. So now the next one is classification of inlay waxes. So it is divided into class 1 and class 2. So the class 1 is extraoral and class 2 is intraoral. What does this word mean, extraoral and intraoral? Is the wax that is used for the laboratory purpose and the wax that is used for inside the patient's mouth. Okay, so this inlay wax is applied as blue, green, purple and various colors in the form of sticks. Okay, in the form of sticks, cakes, small pellets and cones. Coming into our next topic, that is composition of inlay wax. So what is the composition of the inlay wax? That is, it consists of paraffin wax. Okay, it consists of sericin. It contains of gum damar. It consists of carnauba wax. It consists of candela wax and synthetic wax. So generally, what are the compositions of the inlay wax means? So it consists of paraffin wax, sericin, gum damar, candela wax, etc. Okay, so coming into the first composition, that is paraffin wax. So the paraffin wax is nearly 40 to 60%. Okay, so this is the main ingredient. This is the main ingredient. Is it established the melting point? So the paraffin wax is the main ingredient. So it determines the melting point of the inlay wax. So the next one is flakes, that is, do not give a smooth surface. So as we already read in the ideal requirements of the inlay wax, that is, it should not flake or crumble when softened. But the composition of inlay wax, which consists of the paraffin wax, this paraffin wax generally flakes and it does not give a smooth surface. And so in order to eliminate or to minimize this property, we are going to add certain waxes to modify this property. So what are those waxes? That is sericin. So this sericin, it is generally 10%. This partially replaces the paraffin. So it is generally increasing the toughness, that is strength, and it is easy to carve. So we have read already here that the paraffin wax generally it flakes and do not give a smooth surface, while the sericin, it is easy to carve and it gives a smooth surface to our inlay wax. The next one is gum damar. So this gum damar is nearly 1% in the inlay wax. So this gum damar, it improves the smoothness during molding. So while molding, so this is the wax, now I am molding it. Okay, so what happens during molding? There is a smoothness. So this smoothness, it is due to the gum damar, which is 1%, and it is resistant to cracking and flaking. Okay, this is also one of the advantageous property of gum damar. Okay, as it is resistant to cracking and flaking. So the next one is it increases toughness. So as sericin, it also increases the toughness of the inlay wax and it enhances the luster of the surface. As see, you can see it is lustring the wax, this wax, this wax, it is lustring. So this luster property, it is due to gum damar, okay, which is 1% in the inlay wax. The next composition is the carnauba wax, which is nearly 25%. So it is quite hard. It has a high melting point and it is combined with paraffin, which decreases the flow at mouth temperature, that is nearly 37 degrees centigrade. The flow is decreased. Okay, and it also gives the glossiness to the wax surface. Okay, so the next one is candela wax, which replaces this carnauba wax because it has a high melting point, and this candela wax has low melting point and it is not as hard as carnauba wax. Okay, so what does if the wax has a high melting point, what happens? It melts readily. So we don't want our wax to melt readily. Like at specific temperature, we want the wax to be stable and rigid, and at other specific temperature, we want our wax to flow. So there should be a balance. So that's the reason this candela wax is quite opposite to the carnauba wax. That is, it is having a low melting point and it is not as hard as the carnauba wax. Next, the next component is synthetic wax. So this synthetic wax also replaces the carnauba wax, but It is also having a high melting point as a Carnauba wax, and it has a good working qualities. So this is the advantageous property of this component, that it is having a good working qualities. Coming to our next topic, that is the properties of the inlay wax. So properties of inlay wax. So what are the properties of inlay wax? Generally we have read the properties of general waxes. So in the same way they are more or less similar, but there would be a quite dissimilarities between this. So now let us study what are those dissimilarities between the general waxes and the inlay waxes. So the first property is flow. So flow. So it is generally different for the both class. Like I have said earlier that inlay waxes can be of two types, that is class 1 and class 2, that is extraoral and intraoral. So first we'll be studying about class 1 inlay wax. What is the flow of the class 1 inlay wax? So the class 1 inlay wax, when it is heated around 45 degrees, which is tolerated by the patient, okay, it melts and flows. So as it melt and flow, it is having a good flow and good reproduction of the structures in the oral cavity. So after heating, we are going to cool down at 37 degrees, that is mouth temperature. What happens when from 45 degrees the wax is cool to 37 degrees? It gets contract. That means the wax gets hardened. Okay, the wax get hardens. So after the wax hardens, we are going to carve the wax in the shape of a tooth in the mouth. So this is the class 1 inlay wax. So this class 1 inlay wax at 45 degrees. So this 45 degrees temperature is well tolerated by the patient. So at this temperature the wax melts and flows, and it reproduces the surface details, and it cools down at the mouth temperature, and we are going to carve it in the desired form of the crown. Next, the class 2 inlay wax, so which is a laboratory wax. That is, we are going to prepare it extraorally. So this wax, it hardens at 30 degrees centigrade. So the class 1 inlay wax which hardens at 37 degrees centigrade, whereas the class 2 inlay wax which hardens at 30 degrees centigrade. So this is suitable for laboratory, and it is not suitable for mouth, because its flow will be very poor, because it hardens at 30 degrees Celsius, so its flow will be very poor. So it is not suitable for the mouth, that is intraorally. It is just suitable for extraoral preparation of the wax pattern. Okay, coming on to the next property, that is thermal properties. So thermal property. So in thermal properties, we are going to discuss about thermal conductivity first. So what is thermal conductivity? Like a material which conducts the electricity or heat or anything. Okay, so this thermal conductivity is low for waxes. Okay, this property is low. So what does this line mean is, it takes time to heat the wax uniformly and cool it to body or room temperature. So what does this mean? Like we are going to take this wax. Now I'm going to heat it uniformly by placing it over a flame. Okay, so and now I'm going to cool it to the body or room temperature. So what happens? This wax rapidly doesn't get heated and it melts, or it takes quite some amount of time to uniformly get heated. Okay, so why? Why it takes time to get heated uniformly? Due to its thermal conductivity. It is low. So that's the reason the wax takes time. Okay, the next one is coefficient of thermal expansion. So as I have said earlier in the general properties of waxes, that coefficient of thermal expansion is generally high for the wax. So in the same way, for inlay waxes also, the coefficient of thermal expansion is high. Okay, so what happens? For every increase in temperature of 20 degrees Celsius, the linear expansion is 0.7% due to its greater coefficient of thermal expansion. And the next point is the contraction of pattern. So that is, the contraction of pattern occurs when taken from mouth to room temperature. As you all know, why the contraction occurs? Yes, you are right. It is due to the decrease in temperature. Okay, so like the mouth temperature is 37 degrees and external temperature is about 27 degrees. So due to decrease in temperature, there occurs the contraction of patterns. So what are the factors that affects the coefficient of thermal expansion? So what are the factors that affect the coefficient of thermal expansion is when the wax, Okay, when the wax, it is allowed to cool under pressure. So when the wax is allowed to cool under the pressure, the thermal properties get changed. Okay, this is one of the factors which influence the thermal properties of the inlay waxes. And the other is the temperature of the dye. The temperature of the dye and the method used to apply pressure on the wax. So while we apply the pressure on the wax, what happens? The wax tends to get solidifies. So what does that mean? As you generally, it is a general example. We have light on a candle. Okay, so it gets heated and the wax melts away. Okay, it falls on the floor or the ground. So after some time, what we see is the melted wax which has fallen down on the floor. Okay, it gets solidified. This both factors also influence the coefficient of thermal expansion. And the one more thing is reheated. So when we reheat the wax, what happens? The linear coefficient of thermal expansion is increased. Okay, so linear coefficient of thermal expansion is generally increased when we reheat the wax. So the next thing is wax distortion. So what is meant by a wax distortion? So as I said earlier, like this example, taking this as an example. Okay, now I'm going to press this. See what happens? It's getting distorted. Okay, so this is the wax distortion. So this wax distortion is a most serious problem which is due to release of stresses. Which is due to the release of stresses. Okay, so next, causes. What are the causes of the wax distortion? So one more thing I have to like to tell you is this wax distortion is the most important property. Okay, it can be a important SAQ here because those causes are more important in this topic. Okay, so what are the causes of the wax distortion? It can be due to contraction on cooling. Okay, one of the cause is contraction of the wax on cooling. The next cause is occluded gas bubbles. Okay, occluded gas bubbles. And the next cause is change of shape of the wax during molding. Okay, when we mold the wax, like this is the wax, now we are going to mold it. Okay, now I'm going to mold this. So there is a change in shape. Okay, due to this, this can be a cause of wax distortion. And the next thing is from manipulation. So while doing certain procedures like carving, polishing and removal of the wax, there can be a wax distortion. Okay, so this wax distortion generally depends on method of forming pattern, handling the pattern and length of time and temperature of storage of the pattern. Okay, so how we are forming the pattern, next how we are handling the pattern, and the next one is the length of the time and temperature of storage of this pattern. This all directly influence the wax distortion. As I had said earlier, that distortion can occur due to the method of manipulation too. So what does this sentence mean is, so when we manipulate, okay, suppose if there is any inhomogeneity of the wax that we didn't manipulate it homogeneously, so which leads to inhomogeneity of the wax. So due to this, there would be an intermolecular distance. So due to this intermolecular distance, okay, there would occur the distortion. Okay, so this distortion occurs if the wax is not at a uniform temperature, okay, during insertion into the cavity and due to stress. Like some part of the wax may contract more than the other part. So due to this differentiation, there would be a generation of the stress. So due to the stress, there will be a distortion. Okay, so the next one is wax. If the wax is not held at the uniform pressure during cooling. So during cooling, if the wax is not held under the uniform pressure, then it leads to the distortion. Next, if the fresh wax is melted, okay, the fresh wax is melted and it is added to the deficient area where there is a scarcity of the wax, where the wax is deficient, we are going to add the freshly melted wax. So what happens if we add the freshly melted wax over there? So this freshly melted wax which introduce the stress during cooling. So as the older wax which has melted already, okay, so when we add this fresh wax, it introduces the stress on cooling. Next, during carving, so when we carve a wax, like a wax pattern when we carve, the wax gets disturbed. The particles inside the wax, it gets disturbed. So due to this, there is a release of stress. Okay, so what this mean is, this distortion cannot be avoided totally. It cannot be eliminated, but it can be reduced by taking a certain precautions. So what are the precautions to be taken to minimize this distortion? That is, the first one is minimal carving. That is, we don't apply a more pressure on the wax pattern during carving. Okay, because it disturbs the wax particles, which leads to distortion. So we apply a minimum pressure during carving. Okay, the next one is minimal storage. That is, immediately we make a metal crown or ceramic crown or anything. Okay, we don't storage it to much days. For much days we don't store it. Okay, so minimal carving, minimal storage, and decreased change in temperature. Like if temperature changes are very low, then the wax cannot be subjected to more distortion. So by this we can prevent it. Okay, next. So we are going to immediately invest it. If we suppose want to storage, I mean we want to store the wax pattern, then we can store it in refrigerator. But they recommend to avoid the storage and do it immediately. Okay, to prevent any distortion and dimensional instability. Next, our next topic is residue on ignition. So, as I have said you earlier, during a casting procedure, that we are going to melt away the wax at burning at 500 degrees centigrades, so that there would be a no residue, and we will be allowing the molten metal alloy to flow into it and prepare a metal crown. So the wax is, it tends to vaporize during the burnout procedure. Okay, so there could be some residues of the wax which are quite low, that is 0.1%. Okay, so if suppose excess residue is left over in the pattern. Okay, why there is an excess residue? Again, it comes under the topic of casting procedures and investments in this topic. But the excess residue can be left over due to incomplete burnout procedure. Okay, so which leads to incomplete casting. So what does this word mean, incomplete casting? Incomplete casting means there could be some defects in the casting due to the incomplete burnout. What are those defects? Like there could be a porosities, or there can be a stress, and etc, etc. Okay, so we'll be talking detail about this topic in the casting chapters, casting procedures. Okay, our next topic is manipulation of inlay waxes. So how we would be manipulating our inlay wax? The manipulation of inlay wax may be of direct technique, okay, or it can be of an indirect technique too. It can be a direct or indirect technique. First, we will be discussing about direct technique. So what does that direct technique mean? Like, first, hold the stick of the wax over the flame. Okay, so first what we do is we take a wax. Okay, suppose this is the wax, this is the wax. Now what we do, we'll be making a stick. Okay, so this is the stick of the wax. Now I'm going to hold the stick of the wax over a flame, and I'm going to rotate it rapidly. Like this, I'm going to rotate it. So what happens when I rotate it? The wax becomes plastic. That is, it becomes like a thinned part. See, this is the plastic. Like this, the white layer which you could see. Okay, this is the plastic. So it becomes plastic. Then this softened wax. So after this wax gets softened, we are going to shape it in the form of prepared cavity. Now I'm going to shape this wax in the form of the cavity. Like my cavity is like this. Okay. Okay. So my cavity is like this. So I'm going to shape it in the form of my prepared cavity. I'm going to insert this wax in the prepared cavity. Okay. So after inserting this wax in the prepared cavity, now I'm going to apply a pressure. Okay. So finger pressure I'm going to apply like this. So like this. So when I apply pressure, what happens? The wax gets solidified. Okay. It gets solidified and it is allowed to cool at the mouth temperature. Okay. Now it got solidified. Okay. After that, now I'm going to use my carver and I'm going to carve this in the form of my prepared cavity, like what are the anatomical landmarks, cast those all, whatever I need, I will be carving in the shape of that trunk. Okay. So after that, I'm going to withdraw this wax pattern along long axis. So this is my tooth and this is the long axis. So along the long axis, I'm going to remove my prepared wax pattern. Okay. So after that, what are the precautions to be taken? The pattern should be touched as little as possible. So why we should pattern should be touched as little? To avoid the temperature changes. The human body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. We are going to touch it as little as possible to avoid the dimensional changes and temperature changes. And here I have also written what other effects. I mean, what are the other things that we should not do with our wax pattern? That is, I have said here that with finger pressure, we are going to apply the pressure on the wax so that it cools and solidifies. So other than that, if we cool the wax rapidly by cool water, what happens? There would be a differential contraction of the wax. So due to this differential contraction, there would be a development of internal stresses. Okay, this should be avoided. And the other thing here, after the wax is cooled, we are going to carve the wax by using the cold carving instrument. Why cold carving instrument must be used? Because if we use a carver that is very high temperature, so if we use a hot carver, what happens? It causes the localized reheating of the wax with warm instruments. So if we use a warm instrument, it causes the localized reheating of the wax, which leads to distortion. So these two causes should be avoided. Okay, we had to use a cold carving, and finger pressure should be applied to allow it cool to the mouth temperature. Be moving on into our indirect technique. So what does this mean, indirect technique? The molten wax is used to prepare an inlay pattern, okay, or a lubricated dye. So I have already said this direct technique is actually we are preparing the wax pattern inside the mouth, and in indirect technique we are going to prepare a wax pattern directly on the dye, which is prepared readily from the patient's mouth. Okay, so in this case little residue stress occurs. Why little residue stress occurs? Here we are preparing it in the laboratory, so temperature changes are very low. Okay, so and here this pattern may be prepared by three methods. What are those three methods? Dipping method, softened in warm water, and addition method. So now we will be going to study in detail about each method. So what is dipping method? So the dye which is prepared from the patient's mouth, it is dipped repeatedly into a hot liquid wax. So we are going to take a hot liquid wax. Now we are going to dip the dye repeatedly so that the wax gets deposited on the dye, and then the wax is cooled, carved, and it is removed from the dye. So this method is generally used for full crown preparations. Okay, this method is generally used for full crown preparations. Next, the next one is softened in warm water. The soluble constituents may leach out. Okay, due to this, the properties of the wax changes when the wax is placed in warm water. Okay, we are going to soften the wax in the warm water, and we are going to take the wax and put it over the flame. So what happens when we keep a wax with water? What happens? We get some sort of sounds, right? So that is called as splattering on flame. So what happens when this type of manipulation occurs? So it interferes with the softening of the wax. So the water that is present on the surface of the wax, it interferes with the softening of the wax, which causes the distortion of pattern. Why there is a distortion of pattern? Due to thermal changes. Okay, so generally when we place the wax in the warm water, what happens? The soluble constituents that are present in the wax, they come out of the wax and they dissolve in the water. So due to this, the properties of the waxes gets changed. Okay, next, the third procedure is addition. So what does that mean? It is as simple as we generally do it in our labs. So what happens is the wax is melted. So we are going to melt this wax and add in layers using a spatula or a brush. Okay, so where there is a deficient, we are going to melt the wax and add it in the form of layers by using a spatula. So this is all about the manipulation of the waxes by using the direct technique and indirect technique. After that, what we do generally is polishing. So how we do the polishing of the wax? It is generally done by rubbing it with the silk cloth. So we take a silk cloth and we rub it over the surface of the wax so it gets polished. So note, what are this note? So invest wax pattern to avoid distortion. As I have said you earlier, the wax pattern should be invested earlier as soon as possible so that the distortion will be lower. Okay, next, the waxes oxidize on heating. Okay, so they evaporate, and which causes the darkening precipitation of gummy deposits. So generally, what happens when we overheat the wax? What happens when we like while making an occlusal rims, we heat the spatula overheated, like we can see the visible flames, and we tends to make the surface of the occlusal rim smooth. Then what happens? The waxes get oxidized. Okay, oxidized, and darkening of the wax surface occurs. Why it occurs? Due to the precipitation of gummy deposits. Next, so that's why use low temperature needed for melting. So to avoid this darkening, we use low temperature that is needed for the melting of the wax. Okay, this is all about the inlay waxes. Now we are going to discuss about base plate wax. So our next topic going to be a base plate wax. So the base plate wax, so it is also called as modeling or type 2 wax. So the base plate wax is also known as the modeling or type 2 wax. So it is used to create the form of dentures and appliances that are made of acrylics. So this base plate wax is generally used to create the dentures and appliances. Okay, so this wax, what are the advantages like properties of this base plate wax is they're used to make occlusal rims. They're used to make occlusal rims. Okay, to form the contour of denture after the teeth are set. So after we set the teeth, we are going to form a contour. For example, now let us take this. So see, so this is the line. So you could see, right, this line. This is the contour. This is the contour. For making this, we would be using the base plate wax, and it is also used to make patterns for the orthodontic appliances. So for making orthodontic appliances, so we are going to use this base plate wax. Next, what are the classification of this base plate wax? They are of three types: type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 1 is soft, type 2 is hard, and type 3 is extra hard. So this soft base plate wax, it is used for building veneers. And this type 2, it is used in mouth, that is in normal climates, and extra hard it is used in tropical climates because in tropics there would be a much higher temperature. Okay, next, this base plate wax, they can be supplied as a sheets of pink or red color. Okay, what is the composition? The composition may be same as that of inlay wax, but there might be certain changes. There is paraffin as inlay wax, bee wax we have not read, so here bee wax is additional. Next, carnauba wax, it is also there in inlay wax, and synthetic resin, this is also some new, and the microcrystalline, this is also not present in the inlay wax. So only paraffin and carnauba wax are same that of inlay wax. The remaining all that exclusively present in the base plate wax. So the paraffin wax, which is 80%, bee wax is 12%, carnauba is 2.5%, synthetic wax 3%, and microcrystalline, this is 2.5%. Next, the other type of wax, that is processing wax. So what is the processing wax? That is beading or boxing wax. As we have studied earlier in the classification, that is they are used for preserving the surface area, the height of the cast, and they forms the shape, correct shape for the base of the cast, and they're also used to preserve the borders. Okay, so this is the beading wax, you could see. So this is the beading wax. Next, so this, what are the uses of this processing wax? They build up the vertical walls around the impression, that is boxing wax. So in preclinical prosthodontics, we'll be having a exercise of making the beading and boxing procedures, and we would be pouring a cast. So the what is the prime purpose of boxing? So it is used to build up the vertical walls around the impression. Okay, it can be supplied as, the boxing wax is supplied as sheets, and beading wax they are strips. So what I have showed earlier, this is the beading wax, so it could be as a strips. So let me show you this beading wax. See, you could see these are the strips. There are compartments inside it. See, these are the strips. We could be tailed. See, these are the strips. So this is the beading wax. So boxing wax, it can be sheets, It can be supplied as a sheets. So what are the advantages of this processing wax? They preserve the extensions and landmarks of the cast, and they control the thickness of the borders, and they controls the form and thickness of the base of the cast, and they also conserves the artificial stone. Okay, so what is the prime purpose of beading and boxing is we are going to preserve the extensions and landmarks, and we are going to control the thickness of the borders and the cast, and we are also going to conserve and limit the cast. Okay, next, what are the properties? So they are pliable, they can be adopted easily, and they have slight tackiness. So which of the wax? This one I have showed earlier. This is the beading wax. So you could see they are pliable. See, they are pliable, and we can adapt it easily. Okay, the slight tackiness, like see, this is the tackiness. Okay, so what is the technique? So how we are going to do beading and boxing? So here we are going to learn the technique of beading. So this beading wax, it is 4 mm wide and 3 to 4 mm below the borders of the impression. So what this means is, this beading wax is generally 4 mm wide, and it should be 3 to 4 mm below the border of the impression. Okay, so that we can preserve the extensions and landmarks. So it is adapted around the periphery. So we are going to adapt the beading wax around the periphery of the impression. Okay, next, the height is adjusted. So how the height is adjusted? Like, let me explain you this procedure detail. So let us consider here. So now this is our impression. Okay, so this is our impression. Now we are going to take a beading wax. This is strip. Now we are going to adapt this beading wax here, like we are going to, like this. Okay, now we have adapted this beading wax around the periphery of our impression. So what this means is, the height should be adjusted. So after placing this beading wax around the periphery of the impression, now we are going to take a sheet of boxing wax, and we are going to place it on the beading wax. Okay, like in 3D it would be, this is our tray, this is our beading wax, and this one would be a boxing wax when we see from the side view. Okay, so this boxing wax strip extends 13 millimeters above the highest point of the impression. So suppose this is the highest point. So from highest point it should be 13 millimeters above. So it should be 13 millimeters above from the, this is the highest point. Okay, this is the highest point. So from highest point it should be 13 millimeters above. Which one? This boxing wax. This boxing wax. Okay. Next, after this beading and boxing procedure, what we do is, the stone is vibrated into the boxed impression. Now into this we are going to pour our stone, dental stone or plaster, whatever it may be. We are going to pour. How we pour it? We are vibrating. We are going to pour. For the uniform distribution, we are going to vibrate it and pour it onto this beading and boxed impression. Okay, so coming to our topic, next type of wax is utility wax. So what is utility wax? So what are the uses? So this utility wax consists of bee wax, petrolatum, and soft waxes. These are the composition of utility wax. It can be supplied in the form of sticks and sheets. Okay, next, what are the uses? It is used to adjust the contour of the perforated trays. So generally we have perforated trays and non-perforated trays. So perforated trays are the trays which are having a holes on it, and the non-perforated trays which are plain enough. So suppose, okay, this is non-perforated tray. This is the perforated tray. So to contour this perforated tray, we are going to use this utility wax. Okay, next, this utility wax is pliable and it can be molded easily, and it is adhesive and it sticks to the tray. That's the reason we are going to use this for the contouring of the perforated trays. Next, the other type of wax is sticky wax. So this composition is same as that of utility wax, but we get additional resin, and natural resins are present. In natural resins, we can have the gum dammar. Okay, next, after the composition, now we are going to revise the properties of the sticky wax. So what are the properties of sticky wax? It is generally quite similar to the general waxes. That is, it is sticky when melted. Okay, it adheres closely to the surfaces to which we have applied this sticky wax, and at room temperature, it is firm, free and brittle. Okay, so what does this line mean is the sticky wax is generally firm, that is, it is rigid in the room temperature. Next, what are the uses of the sticky wax? The sticky wax is generally used for joining metal parts before soldering. In soldering procedure, before joining the metals, we are going to use the sticky wax in between. Okay, next, it is also used for joining the fragments of broken dentures. Now you can see this is the denture. Now suppose if this denture have been broken. Okay, now I need to join this denture, this pieces of denture. So what I do, I use this sticky wax for joining the fragments of the broken denture. Next, the last wax, it's not last, still it's there. Okay, so the wax is shellac. So shellac, many of you have seen the shellac wax. It is generally brown in color. Okay, so it is generally used to fabricate the denture bases and custom trays. They're just temporary. Okay, they used to make the temporary record base. Next, it is also used for bite registration. For making a bite registration also, we use the shellac base plate wax. So the composition of the shellac is, it consists of shellac wax, stearic acid. The stearic acid acts as a plasticizer, and it also contains mica, which is a filler, and it provides the strength to the shellac base plate wax, and aluminium. Aluminium, in the same way as mica, it acts as a filler and it adjusts the viscosity of the shellac. And the other last one is talc. So this is the composition of the shellac base plate wax. Okay, next, why the shellac is only limited to the temporary, why not permanent? Because it has several drawbacks. So what are the drawbacks of shellac base plate wax? It is unstable. The first and main reason is it is unstable. Next, it is subjected to distortion. Like when we heat it, okay, it is unstable. It is dimensionally stable, and that's the reason we are not using the shellac as a permanent denture base or custom trace. So due to its thermoplastic material, due to its thermoplasticity, it is only limited to a certain use. Okay, next, the next wax is bite registration wax. So generally this bite registration wax is not commonly asked in exam, but just we need to know what's the use and composition of this bite registration wax. And remember one thing, the shellac base plate wax, it is a spotter. It is general viva question. So we have revised it. Now finally we are going to revise what are the bite registration wax. This bite registration wax, it is generally used to record the relationship between upper and lower teeth. Like suppose this is the bite registration wax. Okay, now this is the mandible, this is maxilla. Now we are placing this bite registration wax in between the maxilla and mandible. So what happens? It registers the occlusal relationship and the bite of the patient. See, this is the bite. So it is used to record the relationship between upper and lower teeth, and its composition it is same, that it consists of paraffin and aluminium, or it can also consist of copper. So this is all about the dental waxes. Okay, so general, what are the classification of waxes according to U origin, use and ISO classification, and what are the general properties of the waxes? We have read melting range, thermal expansion. Okay, and mechanical properties, flow, and residual stresses can be of two types, that is due to compressive and tensile, and ductility. And we have also read about inlay wax, which is the most common and most important waxes in the dentistry. What are the uses, what are the ideal requirements, and composition, which consists of paraffin, all the compositions and the properties of the inlay waxes, that is class 1, class 2 and thermal properties. And we have also read about the distortion of wax, which is most important property, and what are the causes of the distortion, and what are the procedures of manipulation, that is direct technique and indirect technique. Okay, and we have read about the polishing and what are the types of other waxes, that is base plate wax, processing wax, utility wax and sticky wax. Okay, again we have read about the shellac and bite registration wax. So that's all about the dental waxes. So hope you all like this video. Thank you.